Hello and welcome back to Beyond the To-Do List, a podcast about productivity. I'm your host, Eric Fisher, and I'm excited to welcome to the show Madeline Mann. She's an HR expert and author of the new book, Reverse the Search: How to Turn Job Seeking into Job Shopping. In this conversation, we talk about how to move beyond the traditional job application process and how to shift into a job shopping mindset where you're positioning yourself as the solution to a company's needs. Madeline explains how to avoid the pitfalls of AI filtering, why networking and human connections are crucial to uncovering unlisted opportunities, which I can say from my experience is where most of the time the action happens, and also how to approach interviews and negotiations with confidence. So, if you're ready to take control of your job search, this conversation with Madeline Mann is perfect for you. Well, it is my privilege to welcome to the show Madeline Mann. Madeline, welcome to Beyond the To-Do List.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
You've been working in HR and recruiting for so long, and now you've got this book, which I'm kind of surprised we've never actually talked about job search processes and processing before. Your new book, Reverse the Search: How to Turn Job Seeking into Job Shopping, is out now. It's brand new. And I'm curious, you've obviously been working on this for so long. This feels like a holy grail in some senses and the right time for sure. But what pushed you to release this now?
I have been working, exactly as you said, in human resources for so long, seeing at scale what gets people to land interviews and land job offers. And it wasn't simply having the right qualifications. As a matter of fact, tons of people who weren't appropriately qualified, I was seeing landing offers, whereas other people who had all the bells and whistles were falling to the wayside. And I saw this over years and years, coached thousands of people, and now we see this current job market, which is the toughest job market I have ever seen. And essentially, no longer is what I call job shopping a luxury. It is a necessity now. If you want to stand out in this time where there is so much noise happening for every open role, you need to approach things differently. And fortunately, when you look at how people are job searching, where it's comfortable, it's crowded. A lot of people are just doing what they're comfortable doing. And that means that basically there's so many avenues that are overpowered right now. So if you can reverse the search, if you can go a different route, it can actually completely change your fortune and you can job shop a lot faster.
Now, I know in the book you're talking about how, now more than ever, and I hate saying those words, but we've heard them so many times, but now more than ever, that, and I can attest to this because I've been looking for things part-time and project-wise and et cetera, but that the whole process seems to be broken.
So there's a few major things that are broken. So first of all, many of us are multi-passionate. We have a lot of different interests and a lot of different skills, but companies do not want a jack of all trades. When you are positioning yourself in the job market, it's really important to be focused. So that's one thing, is that the job market doesn't really account for how dynamic of a professional many of us are. The second thing is that the online applications for jobs is essentially the worst thing to ever happen to a job seeker, because people who were before qualified and intentional about where they applied, now in this digital age where it costs nothing to apply anywhere versus before it was a stamp and a piece of paper and an envelope, now you get completely flushed out and ignored because there's so much noise. And so companies will take other routes to find candidates, which is something I really help people to be, okay, let's be the one who's found in those other routes. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that when you go into job interviews, you'll come to realize that you are not landing the job necessarily because you're the best candidate, but because you sold yourself the best in the interview. So there's actually a separate skill set. It's not just being good at your job, it's being good at job interviewing. And so unfortunately, even if you are the best in your industry, if you lack confidence in the interview, if you don't know how to position your skills correctly, you won't land the job and someone less qualified will.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's like auditioning. And if you don't do good on the audition, it doesn't necessarily say you can't do the job, but it's like knowing the content, or it's like knowing the information in grade school, high school, college, whatever. Oh, I know the information. I just don't test well, or at least I don't test well the way they were testing it.
Yes. I remember in high school taking a class on how to do better on the SAT, which you would think that the SAT is supposed to just measure if you're smart and if you've done well at school. It blew my mind that I think I increased my score by something like 300 points because I paid to take this additional class. And that is the way of the world. That's exactly the same as job interviewing.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot more broken. I mean, one of the things, when you said the thing about the flood of applications, that because now there's no friction to being able to just apply online any and all of the places for all of the positions, even if you're not even remotely qualified. And now we've got this added addition of, I think within the last 2.5 years, these kind of keyword filtering based on AI that are filtering out people that are completely qualified, would be great candidates, but because the AI is broken and not as intelligent as it's supposed to be, artificial intelligence, it's filtering people out. So it's not helpful.
It is gnarly. When I look now, there are cases where people are getting filtered out and they were very qualified and all of that. Though when I do look at the people who claim, oh, I keep getting filtered out, I keep getting auto rejected, there's usually something fundamentally wrong about the way they're positioning themselves. But they're sitting in the bottle and they can't read the label. They are too close to their own expertise that they can't see, oh, I really didn't capture what are the top 3 things that this company was looking for in this role in my resume to where it was extremely explicit. Whereas the person who has their resume, they'll say, well, if they understand this career path, they understand how this skill set translates to this. And what you have to realize is that both the AI and the recruiter, they are spending seconds or moments to figure out if you're the right fit. And they should never have to dig or create connections. You need to paint it extremely clearly for them because they don't know you. And you need to make that first impression very quickly.
Yeah. One of the mistakes that a lot of people make is applying to more positions thinking, oh, well, I'll play the odds, then my chances will increase. But that's actually the worst thing that they could do.
Absolutely. It is not a numbers game. Straight up, job search is not a numbers game. And I have hundreds of examples to prove that. And so what you would instead want to do is you want to get clear on exactly what your next career move is. And if you actually know the industry, the type of role, the type of company, you'll find that there aren't hundreds of roles for you to apply to. And when you get focused and you then start measuring your job search through interactions, not applications. This is a huge mindset shift that a lot of people have to work with, because if we're talking about productivity, how do people feel productive in the job search? Filling out applications. Boom, my next application's done. Let me get my 11th application in for today. That feels productive. That's actually not a measure of productivity. What's a measure of productivity is how many people have I interacted with who then, responded back. People get people jobs. Databases do not get people jobs. So I'm not saying you can't apply, but the application means nothing if there isn't any sort of human interaction to couple with it.
Okay. So say you're somebody who, you mentioned this earlier, the whole jack of all trades, or you are good at a number of different things. You've had, like myself, I've had, 3, 4, 5 different roles that leaned heavily on one thing, but then I had other stuff to do too. But if I were to look for all of those kinds of roles all at once, I'm going to have less of an opportunity than if I were to say, okay, I'm looking for positions like this or positions like this, and only those and nothing in between. Again, that feels kind of counterintuitive. How do we, redo our resume / do that makeover where we're really positioning ourselves towards those singular strengths?
It is very counterintuitive. And it's really, I would say it's probably one of the number one reasons why people are not landing jobs right now, is because it's this scarcity mindset, thinking that if I don't position myself as everything, I could miss out on something. When really the reason you're missing out is because it's not crystal clear what value you are adding to companies. People see themselves as this beautiful mosaic of so many different skill sets, which they are, but that's not the way a company sees you. They see you as a service. We are paying for you to deliver a service to us. And can you solve our problems? We don't care about your story. We don't care about, all the different dynamics of what make you you. And it's nothing personal. It's an exchange of services. And so what you need to do is get really clear on what is that next career step and have everything line up to that. And people, it's even, okay, now you've focused on one career path, even getting a industry on your LinkedIn profile, like LinkedIn profiles with an industry specific headline get more clicks and more interviews than no industry. And things like this, they realize, oh my gosh, that's what I need. One job focus in your headline, one industry focus. Ideally, sometimes you can do multiple depending on your specific situation. And that actually attracts more opportunities because the companies see you and they go, boom, this person can solve my problems.
Okay, so to go back to the title, and we're talking about job seeking the way we've always done it, and now flipping that into job shopping, what does that perspective shift or approach really look like? Because I can hear somebody saying, well, it'd be great if I could pick and choose between and just shop for the best one, but I'm stuck seeking and foraging in the forest of the wasteland trying to find anything at all.
So the idea of job shopping is that if you were going for skilled roles, I ran HR in the tech industry, building these teams. I hired A to Z every single role you'd see in a corporation. And what I found is that on the company side, hiring is exhausting. It is very labor intensive, and it's done by teams who have more work than they have people. That's the reason they're hiring. And so they will do anything, they really want to do anything to close that role as quickly as possible and find the right person. So they're actually rooting for you. But why do they not fill roles very quickly? Well, first of all, they might get distracted. They have other jobs to do, that kind of stuff. But the second thing is they are scared. It is extremely risky to put a bunch of money behind a hire and seal the deal with them. And so we're seeing right now a lot of companies get through the entire hiring process with candidates and not make an offer to any of them. And you think, why are they doing this? It's because they are scared that none of the candidates they talk to is the right fit. Because anyone who is hired knows that it's better to take a bit longer to hire than to hire the wrong person and train them and have to fire them. And then it causes all this financial turmoil and morale is impacted, all these things. So your goal is, if you are able to put yourself in a league of your own when you're interviewing, and even from the very first moment that they see your resume or see your LinkedIn profile, if you're able to do that, the company will shift. They will start selling you on the opportunity. They will say, oh my gosh, please end this hiring process for us. We know you're the right person. Take this job. And I'm telling you right now, what they do to become these job shoppers, where these companies are chasing them, is not get more certifications, have, the fancy Harvard degree on their resume, those types of things. No, it's actually them positioning themselves as being the solution to the company's problems and really using several different approaches all across the resume, the LinkedIn, and the interview that are psychologically advantageous, that are very persuasive and make the company feel secure and safe and confident that you will be the right person.
And I've had that experience happen where I'm thinking it was more like 9 months ago, about 6 interviews in the process. And I was one of the top final 3, and then they hired no one and started the process over. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I thought my resume's strong. My interviews, I walked away from every one of them feeling like they went great. And I was even offering solutions and all of this. So, I wish I'd had your book back then. But anyways, but I think that's the thing, is we can feel like any one of those things, the resume, our LinkedIn profile, which I definitely have upped the game on for sure since that point, as well as the interview skills, like we were talking about earlier, the audition, especially when there's multiple callbacks. I'm treating it like it's a movie or a play, but still, if we feel like any one of those, we can work on it. I mean, we might have varying degrees of skill or confidence, I would say, in any of those areas, but we've for sure got one of I think we've all can say that we've got one of those that we need to definitely work on. So let's talk about all 3 of those, I guess, real quick here. So as far as the resume goes, again, it's about grabbing attention. That's typically there's an application, but typically they're also wanting your resume. Have you found that people are looking at resumes a lot, or is it the application? Like, is there some kind of secret to put in the application since they're getting so many? Are they even looking at the resume?
Yes. So the resume is still alive and well. Anything that you want the company to know should definitely be on your resume. Never think, oh, well, that's already on my LinkedIn profile, so I won't put it on my resume, or that's already in the cover letter. No. Resume is the single source of truth for everything. And the great thing about a resume that can't be done on LinkedIn profile is you can customize it to the opportunity. And I do recommend doing that. Now, of course, some people might say, oh, that takes forever. It doesn't take forever if you know what you want. If you're going for all very similar roles, customizing your resume shouldn't take more than, a few minutes. So yes, we do want to catch their attention with the resume. The resume is alive and well. There's 2 different ways that you can get your resume seen. The first is, it is true that expediency can often pay off. So let's say the role just came out and you apply within the first 24 hours, that will increase the likelihood that your resume is seen. So I do see that being beneficial. Now, if you are a career changer, that will make, even if you apply in the first 24 hours, that will make it a bit harder. So just know that usually if you're applying through the normal means on a job board or whatnot, you usually have to be pretty much majority qualified for that. Now, the second approach is really more of the human touch, which is usually faster and more effective. So this is where I'm talking about measuring your job search in interactions instead of applications. So really making sure that you're getting referral and making sure that your resume is seen in that way. Because if you imagine 2 very large piles of paper, maybe like the first pile will be very large. Imagine the pile is, almost up to the top of the ceiling. And the second pile is maybe just a few inches tall on my desk. The one all the way up to the ceiling, that is the one of people applying to these jobs. You see hundreds of people applying to an open job. The one that's just a couple inches tall, maybe even shorter, are the referrals, are the ones that are sourced and found on LinkedIn by recruiters, are the people who are talking directly to the hiring manager or other people in the company. And the goal is to get into that stack. The goal is that, because that's the stack that the recruiters will review first, is the people who are known. And again, the reason why they focus on the people who are known, because we are trying to reduce risk and also time for the company. But there's an element of risk reduction when it's people who are actually making the effort to communicate with the company. It shows that there's an intention there, because so many people apply to jobs that never even reading the job description. So your goal is to get in that shorter stack. And when you do, your resume is much more likely to be read and you're much more likely to land an interview.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I can attest to that. As I was looking back through what I was looking for and all of that, when that previous experience that I was talking about a moment ago, where, got so far in and then they didn't hire anybody, I started looking back at, okay, well, these past roles, like what can I bring from those forward to showcase, etc. But as I was looking at them, I was remembering how I got those roles in the first place. And without fail, pretty much every single one of them was through somebody I knew knowing about the opportunity and referring me.
It is wild. And what I think your listeners will say is, well, I don't know people at the companies
right.
that I want to work for. How, riddle me that. And what I say to that is you don't actually have to know people. You have to notice people. So you can build connections at companies you want to work for if you don't already have those connections. So really taking that proactive approach to networking, and I have a very extensive chapter in Reverse the Search on networking of how to build these relationships. And it's funny because I don't talk that much about networking in my public content because people are so afraid of it that they swipe away as soon as they hear about it. But the approaches I talk about are so easy to implement and so step-by-step that I promise that it's not too burdensome. But I think what people need to hear is that relationships are the fast way. And people are afraid of that, but it's so true. And I also have, for so many of my clients, they get roles created for them, or they hear about roles that are never posted online. And that is the majority of opportunities out there. They are not posted online. So if you want to get the most opportunities, if you want to be a job shopper, yes, networking is one component. There's several others as well, but it is one component that will set you free.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately, it's like one of those things that there's like a proverb or something where it says, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was like 30 years ago, because it would now be in existence. The second best time now. So if you haven't been doing it already, and that's what, again, that's kind of what I've been thinking of in terms of, and you talk about this in the book as well, kind of building your personal brand, because that's a way to attract jobs through visibility and credibility, through content and networking, like we're talking about, and even thought leadership. But again, some of those things, maybe you don't need to do all those things, but you know what? You definitely need to revamp or polish your profile, and you definitely need to be engaged. You might think, oh, I don't get a lot of engagement. Well, have you asked yourself, are you engaging with other people on LinkedIn? Like, have you gone through your newsfeed and make sure to not just react to people's stuff that you want to have stronger ties to and show the algorithm what you want to be fed more of, but are you commenting and or asking questions? You can't just passively do it. So again, unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's like, I need the job now, or I want the job now, but in order to, the fast track is the slow track from years ago that I already should have had these relationships. Okay, well, start now.
Exactly. Yes, you have to start now. You have to start planting your seeds. It's more of farming than hunting is the job search. And so start planting your seeds right now. And yes, I have had clients where as soon as I work with them, I mean, within a few weeks, they're landing offers. So it's not that you're doomed and now it's going to take a whole 6 months or a year for it to work. But what I also talk about in the book, and that's the final chapter, is, okay, here's how to basically put job shopping on autopilot for the rest of your career. You do have to still, keep planting the seeds, keep watering them, that kind of stuff. But it's not like this overwhelming thing. It's more of this kind of monthly maintenance. But once you've done all the pre-work, it's amazing how opportunities continue to come to you for the rest of your career.
Yeah. And actually, don't give up hope or think there is no hope based on what we just said about, oh, you should have been doing this all along. Because here's the other thing. I can attest to, I have gotten positions that were never listed or that were never posted, or I've had positions created for me because of who I knew. And the thing here to remember is, you may say, oh, I don't really know anybody in that industry, but you do know people. And you don't know what positions they know about. Like those unposted positions, somebody knows of one right now that might be a perfect fit for you. So
exactly. I had a client just the other day who said, because this is a big thing I drill into my clients, interactions over applications. And she said, I brought up my job search to, I think she was getting her nails done, the nail technician. The nail technician has a cousin who works at the company that this client, wanted to work at. Boom, introduction, interview, and on the track to an offer. And so we need to not be precise or even make assumptions about who we target when we talk about these things. People are people. Everyone we talk to either has a job or knows someone who has a job. So the likelihood that they could help you is non-zero.
Yeah. And again, sometimes it's an informal interview. It's hey, I'm going to do, man, this is one of the tricky things is where the referral happens through someone else. And so of somebody who knows of somebody's position, like they know of a position that you know the person. And so let me make an introduction through email. And it's like, okay, hopefully they say the right things, but usually it's, they know you and they know you're awesome. And so they make a glowing introduction, and then you have an informal interview that's outside of, I think you've probably even experienced this probably as an HR person, somebody higher up than you in your HR level, like CEO wise, has a conversation with somebody and then throws them down to you and says, hey, I just had a great conversation with this person. I want you to take it from here and keep going. But I've already had a great interview, air quotes, with them.
It happens all the time. And I call it job search parkour, where, the idea of parkour is you're moving through an urban space by not just walking, but you're jumping, you're hopping around. And like, that's the way I think you should think about getting into a business is like, okay, yeah, you could go through the front door, which is the applications, which is the recruiters, which is the HR, or we could do some parkour to shimmy up the drain pipe, hop onto the balcony, crawl through the window, and talk to the director of customer success. And then she then sends me your information. And so I think when people ask me who in a company should I reach out to and build a relationship with, my answer is whoever is most likely to respond. And that is not, it really takes the complexity out of it, because even if that person is an intern, but yeah, they're a friend of a friend, or they went to the university you went to, or whatever it is, you both volunteered at the same nonprofit, whatever it is, and they seem most likely to respond to you. Well, guess what? That person knows a bunch of people at the organization. That person knows the job titles or who could be the hiring manager. That person is still a wealth of information and can leapfrog you into the right position. Just, again, don't make these assumptions about only certain people can help you. Really go for these interactions over applications.
Yeah. And what you said earlier was getting the company, the organization to be selling you on the position. And this is that person that you almost need to sell on you so that they then sell the rest of the organization on you. And then the organization is selling you on the position. They're going to be the ones that are going to see that you're a fit culturally, a fit role wise. You need to make that irresistible candidate type impression to them. Now I can hear people thinking in their minds, okay, this is great advice. This is great guidance. How do I do that without coming on too desperate or too strong and making it seem like I'm, annoying, in other words?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want your listeners to realize is the reason why that CEO that you mentioned had the conversation with that person and then recommended their resume and all of that. And the reason why that happens so often is because you cutting the line, doing job search parkour is beneficial to the company. And let me explain why. The hiring process is exhausting. They have to put out all these applications. And I've been talking to a lot of leaders, and a lot of people are not posting their jobs online right now. Why? because they do not have this exact quote. I talked to it was a customer success officer that she said this to me. She said, I do not have the effort to make it a good candidate experience for everyone who applies. So I don't put my jobs on job boards right now because it's too overwhelming. And so by cutting the line and then creating a role for you, or kind of looking at their upcoming roles and seeing, well, actually, like in Q2, we are going to need to hire this role. So we might as well start interviewing you now because it's almost the end of Q1. You getting in on the ground floor is helpful. So all of this is not just benefit me. It's, oh, I have something that can help you. And they go, oh my gosh, you can help us. Okay, let us get you before we lose you to another company. And so then they start hustling because they realize you are top talent because of the way you positioned yourself and used all of these job shopping approaches. And then you reaching out, following up, all of that's helpful reminders. That's helpful to get them to complete this really important hire they need to make. And ideally, they're going to skip all the folderol of writing all the job descriptions, doing all that nonsense, spending all that money on getting it onto job boards. All of that, you were saving them so much time. So if you go into it with that idea of, I am the solution, I am helping them, that is all part of the job shopper mindset, and they will start selling you an opportunity.
And I think, again, this is one of those things that it feels counterintuitive or a whole lot of extra work when we come to it from that mindset of productivity equals checking more boxes, not the right boxes. I mean, you even have a story in the book that talks about a candidate who created like this detailed marketing presentation. Can you tell that story of how they basically sold themselves? And again, it seems like a lot of extra homework, but I mean, doesn't this call for, if you're going to put any extra effort in, like this is what you want to do it for, right?
Right. So one of the key approaches in the book, because we talked today about reducing risk. So one of the things is, for so many things you spend money on that I spend money on, a lot of us get to try before we buy in some ways, or there's a return policy or something like that. We use an app for free for several days. We, get a sip of the bottle of wine before we purchase the whole thing, those types of things. And a company doesn't really get to see your work quality before they hire you unless they do some sort of test or simulation or something like that, which is becoming more common. But if you can really build out work samples or examples and introduce those into the job interview, it again settles their mind of, oh, this is what it would be like to work with this person. Oh, this is the way they think. And sure, it might take a few extra hours. And we have some examples in the book that really help you to streamline it and also be able to duplicate it across multiple interview processes. But again, you're saving an insane amount of time if you're putting in that step above effort. Like no one else in your interview process is going to be doing this. I guarantee you this. In my entire career, only 4 people have done what I described in the book. And when I do it with my clients, they just land tons of offers. And so obviously, it might take some extra effort for that role, but now your job search is over because you just got an offer, or maybe you want to go for multiple offers, which is quite normal as well. But really, that is the mindset shift I want people to make. Is it's not do more faster, it's do less better.
Yes, and what you just said is one of the most encapsulated ways we talk about productivity, which is exactly what you need to be doing. I mean, again, if you're doing more, I mean, again, you're expending so much more energy checking things off and checking anything that comes into your inbox. That's a flurry of activity that then leaves you drained, and then you have nothing to show for it. Whereas if you can take a more structured, more strategic, and more insightful approach, then you have more energy to be more enthusiastic / creative with your approach to the few that you're trying to do something with, as well as you have more time to do the networking side of things like you've been talking about. Yes,
that bleeds over into every part of your life. Exactly. I I am one of the worst people when it comes to responding things in my inbox. I have tons of unread emails, but it's because I don't let my inbox determine what happens that day. If I'm just letting other people email me and, that means those people are determining what I do with my time. So while I might be a slow emailer and there's a lot of unread emails, I'm also getting a ton of stuff done. And you're right. You want to take that energy, that mentality and apply it to the job search as well.
So we've talked about resumes a little bit here. We've talked about, and really that comes down to tailoring it to the position. And it really comes down to doing some of that pre-work and really deciding what roles you're wanting to go after. And you detail this, and there's much more. I mean, people need to grab the book because there's homework to do. If you're a job seeker that wants to turn into a job shopper, there is homework in there that is detailed and it digs deeper in than we can go in this conversation, but at least now you're aware of it. We've talked about resumes. We've talked about networking. We've talked about, let's talk about interviews. So say you're able to get one, like you're already doing decently enough and you've gotten some. How are you standing out better there? You've stood out with the, you leveraged a network and you got your resume seen. Your resume got you the interview, but you now want to stand out again to be able to get to that offer point.
So there's two main things that you really want to get through in the interview is first, competency, right? So you want to make sure that they feel that you're competent. And that's really what I think most of us focus on is we say, they need to know that I'm competent. And we stop there. And we also focus on the interviews as this is an opportunity for me to answer their questions to the best of my ability. And while that sounds fine, that's actually not the way to approach an interview. If you are constantly saying, I'm on the defensive, the entire interview, I'm on the defensive, fire things at me and I'm just going to try to, duck and weave. That is a terrible approach. You need to go in with a game plan and view the interview as a partnership, as a collaboration. What is the message they need to hear in that interview? If they do not hear that message, what is your plan to make sure that they know that about you? And it's not your favorite thing about you. We talk in the book about autobiography syndrome, where we tend to tell companies our whole life story or the things that we believe make us most impressive. Companies don't care about you. They care about what you can do for them. And so that's what I mean is coming in with that perspective. And then the second piece is likability. You need to focus on being likable in a job interview. That makes it so much easier to land the job. If you look at people who are less qualified than you landing a lot of these roles, they might have used a lot of these approaches and they also might have just been way more likable. And so I go over in the book some approaches there, but I want you to start viewing likability in an interview as something you prepare for. A lot of us don't prepare to be likable. And I also will ask my clients, there's several layers. There's like this hierarchy of like things you need to complete in order to basically always get a job offer. And one of the layers is likability. And I always ask people, okay, which of these layers do you feel like you need to work on? Very few people say likability. Most people think they're likable. I'm telling you right now, most people are not.
Oh, wow. So we kind of take it as a default mode that, oh no, yeah, people like me. Overall, people like me. And instead of going out of, again, it's one of those things where it's like, you've got a window here. It's about making that impression. And again, I think that can be nerve-wracking for some people where it's like, oh my gosh, I only have this small window of time, especially if it's remote. Like if I've got to make sure the camera's set up the right way, I've got to make sure I'm wearing the right thing. I've got to make sure that my microphone's decent enough. Like there's all these factors. And then I got to figure out, again, they go in, they're almost playing defense with those things too. Right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, I'm going to sit here and like I'm going to receive what they give, and then I'm going to try and react right. Whereas you go in with your agenda. Again, it's one of those things where somebody hears me saying the word agenda and they think, oh no, you're coming in and trying to push something. But There's nothing wrong with that. Like it's a message. You have to think about this like marketing yourself.
Mm-hmm. And to further underscore that point, I teach this thoroughly in the book. And one of the things I share is that the interviewer will never say, hey, you're controlling this interview too much. Back down. No, they won't say that. They won't even think that. You know what they will think? They will think when they leave the interview, they go, wow, that was the best interview this week. I got so much out of that interview. I feel like I really understand how this person, it could fit at our organization. And so it's the way you do it is not, hey, I'm going to stop you right there. You asked me that question, Eric. I want you to ask me a different question. No, it's completely different. It's more curving the conversation in a way that feels completely natural. And so once you realize that, you realize, wow, this strategy can really set me free.
Yeah. We go in thinking, well, whatever they give to me, then I'll turn it around and give it back to them, and then they'll get what they want. And in fact, that's the opposite of what you need to be doing. So yes. The bottom line is I not only have helped job seekers land jobs, but in my HR career, I was in charge of training interviewers to be effective. And I'm telling you right now, whether they had 10 months of interview experience or 10 years, these people mostly did not know how to interview. And I was able to quantifiably prove that they could not interview. And so if I'm telling you right now that the majority of people who are interviewing you are not good at interviewing and not good at extracting the correct information, are you going to sit there and just take their questions and just hope for the best? Absolutely not. You are going to essentially help them to have a better interview. And that helps them to pick you. And so that is the game-changing move that your listers can do to make them a job shopper. Yeah. And overall, this is kind of like dating, right? It's like, hey, I want to do the things that are going to show you that I'm somebody worth starting a relationship with, let alone continuing a relationship with. And actually that leads us kind of into the negotiation stage. Say, not just, there's a lot more to negotiate than just benefits and salary. How do we enter into that negotiation stage with that shopping mentality versus seeking?
So in order to be that high caliber candidate, you are going to view negotiation as a collaboration, not this desperate move or getting an offer and say, oh, I'm really disappointed by this offer. I've had someone say that before, and it really, really takes you to a lower level. So what you want to do is you really want to collaborate. So when you start the negotiation, it's not about asserting what you want. It's first about understanding how was this offer created. So some questions you could ask are things like, okay, got it. Yeah, I see that the level is director level. What's the difference, qualifications wise between a director and a senior director, right? Or how did you come across this equity package or whatever it is? Asking questions so that before you start pitching yourself or saying I deserve more, you are starting on a level of, oh, okay, I understand. And if they are giving you information like, look, we stretched to the very top of this range because we're having budgetary issues because blah, blah, blah. We are then going to use that information to empathize and to further help craft what we're asking for. It's never this me versus you. It's this, oh, wow. So first of all, I really appreciate you going to the top of the range for me. And, despite all these budget issues, blah, blah, blah. And then I have some approaches where you can still get even more money and you can still ask for more. But I want to implant it in people's heads that negotiation is not a head-to-head battle. It is a collaboration with someone who you are going to work with. And that I even talk about a study in the book that shows that when they would measure, they looked at a bunch of different negotiations. And when they would look at only the rapport building at the beginning of the negotiation, that was highly predictive of who got more money. And so when you realize this, you realize, oh my gosh, okay, not only will I have the skills to know exactly what to ask for, but if I'm collaborative in my approach, I will get more.
That's great. Yeah. I cannot think of how much this is going to, as a whole, everything we've talked about is going to help a lot of people right now. I mean, I seriously think like the book's going to sell like crazy because a lot of people need this right now. I did. Like I said earlier, I wish I'd had this 9-10 months ago, because the one that kind of got away maybe wouldn't have had I from the beginning going through seriously, like 6-7 interviews and a homework assignment, etc. Like, and then they hired nobody. Like, I was one of the top 3 and they hired none of us, they told us. So, and I don't know if that's even true, but that's what they said. So, but Madeline, this is an amazing book. And again, I think this is going to do a lot of people a lot of good. And so I'd love to point people where they can find out more about you and what you're doing and connect with you, etc.
Absolutely. People can find me and the book at www.reversethesearch.com. Check it out and connect with me on LinkedIn, Madeline Mann.
Perfect. Yeah. And great URL, by the way. Awesome.
I know, right?
I'm glad you were able to find that
out there.
Yeah. So Reverse the Search is the name of the book. Madeline Mann, thank you so much for being here. This is a great conversation. And again, I cannot stress enough that even though we really did kind of do some of the work of helping shift the perspective and give some tips and tricks, this is a tip of the iceberg conversation right here. There is so much in the book. So Madeline, thank you so much for being here.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that's another podcast crossed off your listening to-do list. I hope that you enjoyed listening in on this conversation with Madeline Mann, and I hope that you picked up some tips like I did about the job search, or should I say job shopping process. And I hope that mindset of flipping it or being more laser focused, less scatterbrained and shotgun about it, helps you feel less scatterbrained about the whole process. Honestly, I know it did for me. I started to pick up some good tips here. If you know of somebody who's in the job search process right now and is frustrated with it, this would be a great conversation to share over to them. Share it on social media, share it with a specific friend that you know needs to hear it. Send it on over, hit that share button in your podcast player app of choice or wherever you're listening to this, and or you can find the show notes for this episode at beyondthetodolist.com. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next episode.